That right there, you can see it. I can't really see in my viewfinder real well with the glare. But right there in the bushes, hopefully I'm catching it, is why you do not do stupid tarp shelters. That right there is a rattler. They will go where it's warm when it's cold, and they will go where it's cool when it's warm. It's sitting there in the shade, because that's where I parked my truck, and that's good shade. So, in the middle of the night, you do your stupid little tarp shelter, open on all ends. Poisonous spiders and things like that right there are what's going to cuddle up with you in the middle of the night. And when you move around, you're going to get the poison. Yeah, that's not survival. Well, since my little camp visitor put me on the subject, thought I'd go on with some thoughts on that. If you're interested in survival when you're out in the middle of nowhere, why aren't you packing that? Something like that. If you're interested in survival, you bring that. You know what? It's not even for people for the most part. Or you have a javelina come chasing after you, or bear, or whatever is in your area. That's mostly what that stuff's for. As far as people go, for the most part, you carry that while you're hiking around, slung over your shoulder. Something like that. They see you, they'll notice that. And maybe they notice the sidearm. But then they tend to leave you alone. I want to point out a couple of things here. Right there's a swirl cactus. We got smaller cactuses. Got almost tree-like bushes and bush-like trees. Believe it or not, they're all pretty green. They're so stickery, even the tree-like things around here, you wouldn't want to mess with them for burning them for wood, even if you could, even if they were dead. For the most part, believe it or not, they're not. Most things are alive out here. What's dead and good to burn? Birchwood. Oh wait, no wait, we don't have no birchwood. Everybody's all birchwood in survival groups. It's hilarious. Not hardly any areas that have birch. You use what's in your area. I've gone camping in all kinds of different environments. I'm camping in tall pines. I've gone camping off in more sparse forested areas, deserts. You use what's in your area. And I've never once ever needed birch bark. I've never once ever needed to bash up my knife or batoning wood. It sounds ridiculous to me because I have never needed it, no matter what area I was camping in. Never once ever needed to bring an axe. A saw is sometimes convenient. You bring a saw. That's what you do. But much lighter, much more useful at times. You don't need an axe. You bring a knife, but you don't bash it up and you don't dull it out, making your day-to-day fires. And this right here is the dead stuff that we do use here. It's not birch. It's called century plant. And that is way more wood than I will need for a long time, but I tend to like to collect more wood than I need and just leave the extra for the next person comes wandering through. And that is your wood, your kindling, and your tinder. What you do, this is a lazy man's fire right here. It's real dry, so I don't need to do much to get it going. But what you do in this case is you get an old dead one's base, and those spines right there turn into kind of a hair. Right there is your tinder. Spines there. Get your kindling if you don't find other sticks, which I got plenty. Little sticks around. The top parts have smaller sticks you break off. You don't need a knife or a saw for those. And then the long middle parts of the ones that aren't so long since dead are what's good for burning fairly long, although you never need a long burning fire because you don't leave it burning overnight. I'll go over why here in a minute, but tall standing dead ones, those you can just pull over by hand. Just pull them down and they'll break off at the base, but they're not as rotted out on the inside, so they burn a little longer. But like I said, you don't do a long burning fire. I mean, you don't put it right next to your shelter or your tarp, your lean-to. One of these days somebody's going to burn himself down in the middle of the night. What you do is put your fire pit a little bit downwind of your wood pile, and you put your tent a little farther upwind of that. And then when you're going to go to sleep, you put out your fire. And you do all that so that if it flares back up in the middle of the night, it's not liable to catch you on fire. And you don't do a lean-to or a tarp shelter, especially in a lot more of those forested settings you see people doing them in, because you can have a freaking cold, windy night and it decides to rain, and that's worse than snow, because that rain kicks up and then your winds decide to blow every which direction, and it blows it underneath your shelter, and you get hypothermia. Even easier than if it was snowing. So you don't do that. And you don't leave your fire burning overnight right next to it to keep you warm. You get a good cold weather gear sleeping bag. And you carry the weight of a tent. You put out the expense to buy a tent. That's what you do. And that works. For whatever conditions are, you just get the appropriate sleeping bag and tent. And you hear this excuse, well, tents make it so I can't see it out every which direction, because they're paranoid and they think some military guy's going to sneak up to them in the middle of the night. More likely it's going to be a bear that's going to sneak up to you in the middle of the night. So what you do is you get the kind that has a screen right there. And what you do is it's going to rain. This front panel actually has a backing that comes down. You can see out that way, but it's going to rain. You leave the fly on, but you pull it up a little bit, and then you can see out. You got little peek holes out every which direction. They can't see it in well at night. So you hear them. You look out your little peephole. And you don't think a bullet will come flying out through that tent canvas easy enough without you ever having to step outside? You don't think it'll do that? You're crazy. Much safer than having a tarp shelter where your military guy that's sneaking up on you can see you going for your gun. The reality of the situation is more likely going to be a bear coming through your camp. And that's what your firearms are really about. Maybe a mountain lion, or I've had a mountain lion come into my camp once. I've actually had that. It didn't bother me. In fact, I think I scared it off when I decided to step out and take a leak. So mountain lion, yeah. Bear, yeah. Super soldier sneaking up on you in the middle of the night, not real likely. But, so anyway, it's real dry here. I left the rain fly on for that example. It's not going to rain tonight. So what you do is you just take that fly off. You got a clear sight of everything. So that's what you really do if you're really interested in survival. Most more rainy conditions, yeah, you can't do such a lazy fire, but you don't need birch bark. And you might carry a fire steel because it's reliable on its spark, but a ferro rod. But for the most part, it's actually smarter to carry a waterproof torch lighter, because that will even get your wet wood going a lot easier than your fire steel. And if you aren't so lazy, what you do, I guess I'm not going to do it, I'll just describe it. What you do in other forested conditions, you lay out a couple of logs or rocks side by side, and then you put maybe a couple of little kindling sticks laying across the top to prop up some tinder. This lets air flow underneath the tinder. And then you put a couple of kindling sticks on top of that and build up a little teepee fire. Oh no, teepee fires, that's not survival? Yeah, it is. That's why people do them, is because they start up easy. And you build up, and you put bigger wood on top of that until you get up to your logs. And if you need a long burning fire, which you don't, because you want to put it out at night so that it doesn't catch or anything on fire, and again, for warmth, you don't put the fire next to your shelter. You use a good cold weather gear sleeping bag and a nice little tent. And so you put it out at night for safety. And but if you wanted to do a longer burning fire for whatever reason, and you put a few logs laying up over top of it, and as it burns, you just feed those logs up on top of it. And if you need to saw anything, it's the logs. And you don't need to chop, you don't need an axe, you never once ever need an axe camping. Again, never once ever needed feather sticks to freaking start a fire. Never once ever needed the baton wood, whether it was a tall pine forest or little sparse forest or desert like this. You use what's in your area. Maybe you don't have birch bark, maybe you don't have century plant, but we've got a bit of grass here. Some is green, some is gray. So use your gray dead stuff. Maybe you have dry pine needles, maybe you have pine cones, maybe you have leaves. You look at your area where you're going to be and use whatever's there. And you just build small to big. In the base of your fire, leave in a little airspace on the bottom, and even if the stuff's a little wet, it'll get going. And use a waterproof torch lighter, and maybe you carry a ferro rod for reliable backup in case you did something stupid like break it or whatever. But mainly you just bring your lighter and a few cheapies. Anyway, that's my thoughts on a lot of the silliness out there about survival.